Good morning, students. Hope all of you are fine. And then you were with the prose section all summer in a day. We had stopped maybe in the second page, page number 110. There we came to know the difference of um, Venus and Earth. And then we came to know about men and women from the earth had gone there in rockets to set up civilization and live out their lives in the underground buildings. Actually, in reality, Venus is a hot planet with atmosphere consisting mainly of carbon dioxide, clouds of sulfuric acid, and trace amounts of water. But here, the writer, in a fictitious way, in a imaginative way, he writes it's a rainy world which rains continuously, and it's only after 7 years there used to be just a day with the sun and sunshine, and the particular day happened to be the story setting. And then we came to know about maggot and her friends, how maggot is different from her friends just because she knew the sun and sunshine, as she came from the earth only 4 years back. She had been living in Ohio. And then we also came to know, due to the effect of the rain, she has become pale and fragile. And then writer very nicely explains that the incessant rain made a very bad impact on Maggot's physical appearance. It seemed as if the rains had washed out the red color from her face, the blue color of her eyes, and the golden color of her hair, and she looked so pale and sick. And the rains affected her mentally as well. She felt lonely, and she never mingled with all her other friends who were part of Venus, and in their games she would never join in their game and in their singing and dancing. And only when the children spoke about sun, she would open her mouth. And children, there's blue eyes are associated with the beauty, and the red color with the energy and strength, and yellow with the sunshine and joy. So the writer associate this color in order to show the side effect, the consequence of the rainy world in the life of maggot. And as all of these are lost, these colors are used to describe maggot. She has whitened away to become a pale and morose and very lonely child. It has affected her mentally, psychologically, and physically. And in the last paragraph that we read, we came to know the difference between maggot and her friends. Now you see how these children are playing tricks with her, how they are bullying her. Now, since she is awaiting, according to the predictions by the scientists, that on that particular day the sun is going to be there at least for 2 hours, she is so energetic because she is waiting for the sun. She is fed up with the rains in Venus, and so she is so very eager to speak about the sun. And now how she begins, she says, maggot remembered, it's like a penny, she said once, eyes closed. Why eyes closed? Because she knew her friends are disapproving of anything that she spoke about the sun. So she closed her eyes and said, the sun is like a penny. No, it's not, the children cried. So every one of her friends protested, saying, it's not like a penny. And then she did not give up because it's speaking about the sun. So she said, it's like a fire, she said, in the stove. So she wanted to make her friends imagine the sun is like a fire that comes out in the stove. You are lying. You don't remember, cried the children. So the small children, especially of 9-year-old, how they used to bully each other. They only the things that has convinced them they speak about. Since they have not seen the sun, they couldn't agree with the maggot. Maggot has seen the sun, and so she is able to describe the sun, but other children who have not, who have very vague idea of the sun, is protesting. And everything that spoken by Maggot was provoking them. So at last, she said, but she remembered and stood quietly apart from all of them and watched the pattering windows. Now her eyes are fixed on the windows to see the sun coming up. She wanted to prove herself to the students that what she said is true. So her eyes was fixed upon the window, which had already the pattern due to the raindrops on the window sill. So her eyes was fixed on the windows looking outside. And once a month ago, she had refused to shower in the school shower room, had clutched her hands to her ears and over her head, screaming the water mustn't touch her head. So she was so very fed up with the rains that uh, uh, she even protested when they were giving her bath. Okay, she refused to shower in the school shower rooms, had clutched her hands to her ears over her head. She didn't want the water to fall on her head. So after that, dimly she sensed it. She was different, and they knew her difference and kept away. And she started feeling to herself that she is a different child altogether from her friends, because even the fall of water on her head would make her feel different. So she kept away from her other friends, and others also kept her away, and she was a lonely child. There was talk that her father and mother were taking her back to earth next year. It seemed vital to her that they do so, though it would mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family. Now see, there is also another rumor that Maggot is going to be taken back to earth because she is unable to adjust with the raining world. And so this must also have irritated the other students. Okay, so there are so many reasons why the children are not happy with Maggot. See, although her parents are going to lose thousands of dollars to her family, returning to earth is going to be a great loss for her family, but Maggot is unable to cope up with the rainy world Venus. Her parents are planning to take her back to the earth, and so the children hated her for all these reasons. For all these reasons means she is not happy with the rainy world. She cannot adjust with the even the water on her head. Even the shower she was not able to take. And also her parents were taking her back to the earth had made, or for all these reasons the children hated her for big and little consequences. They hated her pale snow face. So we came to know that the blue had gone from her eyes, the red had gone from her face, and then she has become a pale child. And her waiting silence. She never speak to her friends. Even when spoken to, she never replied. So for her waiting silence, for her pale face, her thinness, she was not a chubby, very bubbling child. She was a very thin child. And her possible future, what is her possible future? That in the coming year, her parents are going to take her to the earth. So for all these reasons, her friends hated her. Get away, the boy gave her another push. What are you waiting for? Now the children are so provoked that the poor little girl is waiting for the sun, and they could not tolerate her anymore. So that one of the boys among her friends pushed her and said, what are you waiting for? Then for the first time she turned and looked at him, and what she was waiting for was in her eyes. What was she waiting for? She was waiting for the sun. So eagerly she was waiting for the sun. And then when this boy pushed her, she wanted to retaliate. She wanted to say something back. She looked at him back. until then she never ever reacted to the boys, but here she wanted to react it back. Why, children? Because the girl maggot is desperately waiting for the sun, and here the boys are taunting her like anything, telling, what are you waiting for? These things are not going to happen. Well, don't wait around here, cried the boy savagely. Savagely means very rudely. You won't see anything. So the boy very furiously said that you are not going to see the sun. Her lips moved. Now for the first time she wanted to speak back. She wanted to react. But then when her lips were about to move, the boys again cried. Nothing, he cried. It was all a joke, wasn't it? So the boy retorted again, and he said it was only a joke, and he wanted the support of all her other friends. And all other children turned. Nothing's happening today, isn't it? They all blinked at him, and then, understanding, laughed and shook their heads. So they all became one in order to protest against poor little maggot. And they all wanted to, they joined together with the boy who was provoking her, and they all joined together in chasing maggot away. Nothing. So in a chorus, all of the other children said nothing. Oh, but maggot wanted to say something. So she opened her mouth. She whispered, her eyes helpless. But this is the day the scientists predict. They say they know the sun. So poor maggot wanted to explain to her friends, the scientists had predicted on that particular day the sun is going to appear on the earth and there will be sunshine for 2 hours. She couldn't complete what she wanted to say out of fear, but she whispered. All a joke, said the boy, and seized her roughly. So the boy was so furious, and then he said, it's all a joke. Hey everyone, let's put her in a closet before the teacher comes. Now they all planned together to put maggot in a closet, and they said they planned together to put her in a closet before the teacher comes into the classroom. No, said maggot, falling back. So maggot was so helpless. She said, no, don't put me in the closet. They searched about her. They searched about means they started quickly moving around her. You must have seen how the children, when they wanted to make fun of someone, they make a round about the person concerned and quickly make a move. So searched about means they started quickly moving around her and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. So they banged the door forcefully against the poor little girl, putting her in the closet and closed her. Even though she was pleading and crying, paying no attention to her, they closed her. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it. Poor maggot was throwing herself and banging the door, but they did not avail her. They did not listen to her pleading. They heard her muffled cries. So poor maggot was crying, whispering. She was muttering few words, but they did not listen to her. Then smiling, they turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. So before the teacher arrived to the classroom, they turned to the tunnel and went back to their underground classroom. Ready, children? She glanced at her watch. Yes, said everyone. For what are they ready? Ready for the sun to appear and to play in the garden. Are we all here? Yes. The rain slacked still more. The rain reduced its strength still more. They crowded to the huge door, and the children were all rushing towards the huge door. The rain stopped. It was as if in the midst of a film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, then muffling, and finally cutting off all noise, all of the blast and repercussions and thunders, and then, second, ripped the film from the projector and inserted in its place a beautiful tropical slide which did not move or tremor. So, what happened, children? Before the teacher's entry itself, William and other children told Margaret that the scientists were wrong in their predictions of when the sun would appear, and they forced Margaret to panic. And her anxiety only increased as the children forcibly took her to a closet. And what happened? All on a sudden, the rain stopped. It was as if in the midst of a film, and they were watching a film concerning an avalanche. Avalanche means a large amount of snow and ice of dirt and rocks that slides suddenly down the side of a mountain. Okay, and it was like a film concerning an avalanche. A tornado. What is a tornado, children? Tornado is also like a violent destructive storm in which powerful winds move around in a central point. A hurricane, you are very much aware of hurricane, extreme large destructive storm, isn't it? And a volcanic eruption. What is a volcanic eruption? Okay, suddenly the water and this one gets erupted, and something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, thus muffling and finally cutting off all noise, all of the blast and repercussions and thunders, and then, second, ripped the film from the projector and inserted in its place a beautiful tropical slide which did not move or tremor. So their experience was such, because until then there was the gushing of water. It was like a tattering drum sounds, okay, and like a tidal waves when it was raining, and especially when they are in the tunnels, the echoing sounds. All on a sudden, all those sounds stopped. So the children felt like a film where the avalanche, the hurricane, and the the volcano eruption stops suddenly, and there is a perfect peace. The children felt like after a hurricane there was a perfect peace. So the continuous rain stopped in Venus, and there was perfect peace. They felt like they were watching a film of volcano or a hurricane, and suddenly the peace comes when another slide inserts. There is peace and harmony. The silence was so immense, and they felt the world ground to a standstill. When the sun appeared, it was like a standstill. The silence was so immense and unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed, as if they felt they had inserted some kind of cotton pieces inside their ears, and there was such kind of perfect peace, or you had lost your hearing altogether. The children put their hands to their ears. They stood apart. The door slid back, and the smell of the silent, waiting world came to them. So it was altogether a different world in Venus, because the continuous rain that had storms and tidal waves had stopped altogether, and there was perfect silence. And the children, as if they are watching a film of volcanic eruption or a hurricane or avalanche, such a terrible voice, and all of a sudden there was peace and harmony. The sun came out. It was the color of flaming bronze, and it was very large. So for the children it was an altogether a different experience, and they felt the color of the sun was like a flaming bronze. It was very large, and the sky around it was blazing blue tile color, and the sky was blue, and the sun was like a flaming bronze, and the jungle burned with the sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed out yelling into the springtime. So they were cast into a spell for a first time. They saw the sun and the sunshine through the through the trees and in the garden, and they were out of their spell, rushed into the garden, yelling into the springtime. Now, don't go too far, called the teacher after them. You have only 2 hours, You wouldn't want to get caught out. So, the teacher advised them not to go so far away because it is only for 2 hours the sunshine. If not, you will be caught up in the rain again. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun on their cheeks like a warm iron. They were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms for the first time. They removed their jackets. Their skins were bathing in the sun, and they could feel the burning sensation on their skin. And they let the sun to burn their arms. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? So they asked to each other, it is better than the sun lamps. Much, much better. They stopped running and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus, that grew and never stopped growing, tumultuously, even as you watched it. So they have seen the forest growing before their eyes because of the continuous rain. There was violent growth due to the rain. The forests were growing so thick. It was a nest of octopi, clustering up great arms of flesh like wheat, wavering, flowering in this brief spring. So why are they comparing to the octopus, children? You know what is octopus, isn't it? With so many hands. The forest had grown so thick, and then now what is happening? The great jungle that covered Venus that grew. Okay, it was a nest of octopi clustering up great arms of flesh like wheat, wavering, flowering in this brief spring. It was the color of rubber and ash, this jungle, from the many years without sun. So what was the color of the forest? It was the color of the rubber and ash, this jungle from the many years without sun. It was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink. And it was the color of the moon. So the forest was in the color of white cheeses and ink, and it was the color of the moon because without the sun it was not greenery. See, the author here has given a vivid description of the land and the forest at Venus with the relentless rain and devoid of sunlight. And then you see the beauty, how he has expressed it. The color of the forest, even without the sun, it was so pale. It was like a cheese. You know the color of the cheese, isn't it? So without the sun, how the forest was looking like, and how thickly it was populated with the trees. Know from these descriptions that the Venus is like a waterlogged world of constant rain. We stop here, children. The rest of the part we will have on the next day. Please read it once, twice, so that you understand some of the words. A little difficult words are also there, but at the same time, this is a simple story. Read it, and if any doubts, please let me know. Until then, up to where we have completed, go through the workbook, write the exercises in your copy. Start studying. Okay, don't waste your time. It's already time for your registration. We have already got the list. We are thinking about how to go about with your registration in this lockdown. So children, be serious with your studies. Okay, God bless you. Keep well.